The Italian Grand Prix at Monza is never short on drama. From the fervent tifosi painting, the grandstands red, to the blistering speeds on the straights, the race has a way of delivering stories that transcend lap times and strategy. This year was no different, with one particular incident igniting both controversy and laughter across the paddock. For much of the afternoon, the contest appeared to be unfolding in predictable fashion. The front runners were locked into their positions, pit strategies seemed straightforward, and the expectation was for a calm run to the checkered flag. But in Formula One, the smallest details can create the biggest waves, and in Monza, that wave came from a misstep in the pits and the fallout that followed. The moment of tension unfolded within the McLaren camp. Oscar Piastri, running comfortably in third, was called in for his scheduled stop. Shortly after, teammate Lando Norris entered the lane for fresh tires. What should have been a routine double stop turned into chaos when the mechanic on Norris's front left wheel fumbled, extending the stop to 5 full seconds. That tiny hiccup was enough for Piastri to undercut his teammate, rejoining ahead on track. Rather than let the situation play out naturally, McLaren opted to intervene. In a decision that immediately raised eyebrows, the team orchestrated a position swap to restore the order they had before the pit stop, moving Norris back into second place and relegating Piastri to third. On paper, it was a clean solution. In reality, it was a recipe for debate, frustration, and ultimately ridicule. And that ridicule came not from within the McLaren garage, but from the reigning 4-time world champion, Max Verstappen. When informed over the radio of the switch between Norris and Piastri, Verstappen couldn't resist a jab. His sarcastic tone crackled through the airwaves, mocking the decision and adding fuel to the growing fire of criticism surrounding McLaren's handling of the situation. What might have been a footnote in the race quickly became one of its most talked about moments, amplified by Verstappen's sharp wit. In the aftermath, questions continue to swirl. Did McLaren overmanage their motorists, denying fans a fair fight on track? Or was the team simply correcting an error and ensuring order was maintained? Whatever your view, Verstappen's reaction ensured the incident won't be forgotten anytime soon. But what do you think? Was McLaren right to force the switch, or should Norris and Piastri have been allowed to settle it themselves on track? Drop your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more exclusive F1 insights, reactions, and behind-the-scenes stories from the paddock. Monza is rarely a stage for calm afternoons. The Temple of Speed has always been a theater where high drama collides with raw passion, the grandstands painted in red and orange, the tifosi roaring at every move. And this year's Italian Grand Prix delivered once again, not through a spectacular crash or a daring overtake, but through a pit stop blunder and the awkward chain of events that followed. For much of the race, everything seemed in order. The leading contenders were locked into their positions, strategies looked clean, and the expectation was for a straightforward sprint to the flag. Yet, as is so often the case in Formula One, the smallest hiccup can trigger waves that ripple across the entire paddock. What began as a minor delay in the pits soon spiraled into one of the weekend's most talked about controversies. The focus inevitably turned to McLaren, with Lando Norris chasing a hard in the championship fight and Oscar Piastri leading the standings. Every detail mattered. Norris, running second, asked over the radio if there was a risk of being undercut by his teammate. His engineer assured him there wouldn't be an issue, but then, at the crucial stop, the front left wheel gun failed. The seconds ticked by, and in that brief lapse, Piastri gained just enough ground to leapfrog his teammate. The undercut wasn't intentional. It was simply a consequence of McLaren's mistake. But the fallout was swift. Rather than let the two motorists fight it out on track, the team intervened, ordering Piastri to give back the position to Norris. The switch left both the garage and the grandstands buzzing. Fans booed on the podium, sensing manipulation. Journalists peppered the paddock with questions, and over the Red Bull radio, Max Verstappen chuckled when told of the switch, adding mockery to an already tense situation. Norris himself wasn't shy in showing his feelings. When his engineer apologized for the botched stop, the Brit responded with silence, a pointed non-reply that spoke louder than words. Later, standing on the podium in front of a booing crowd, he wore the expression of a man who knew the story was only beginning. For Piastri, meanwhile, the frustration was evident. He had done everything right, only to be instructed to yield. And so, McLaren finds itself in the eye of the storm. Was the team right to restore order and keep its championship bid on track? Or should Norris and Piastri have been left to race freely, regardless of a pit lane mishap? Verstappen's laughter may have summed up what many in the paddock were already thinking, that this was less about teamwork and more about damage control. But now the question comes to you: was McLaren justified in giving the order? Or did they rob fans of the fight they deserved? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more in-depth Formula One stories, behind-the-scenes insights, and the latest reactions straight from the paddock. Monza always promises intensity, and this year's Italian Grand Prix did not disappoint. The Tifosi packed the grandstands expecting to see Ferrari take the fight to McLaren, with the home team determined to deliver a strong showing in front of its passionate fans. The mood on Saturday was cautiously optimistic, especially after Charles Leclerc put himself in a position to carry Ferrari's hopes. But for Lewis Hamilton, the weekend began under a cloud. Carrying a 5-place grid penalty for his incident in Zandvoort, the 7-time world champion knew his Sunday would be about recovery rather than outright glory. Yet instead of resigning himself to a damage limitation drive, Hamilton attacked the race with full commitment, producing a performance that combined resilience, aggression, and flashes of the brilliance that defined his dominant years. From the start, Hamilton was in the thick of it. "I got squeezed between two cars and lost some speed," he admitted afterward, "but I was happy with where I came out in Turn 1 and Turn 4. His progress was steady, his pace consistent, and by the closing laps, he was running just behind George Russell, eventually finishing 6th, only 5 seconds down on his Mercedes successor. For Hamilton, it was a welcome change of tone after a difficult first half of the season, yet the Briton was clear that more could have been done. He believes Mercedes should have been more aggressive when he closed on Russell early in the race. "Probably in hindsight, we should have tried to overtake him at that moment," Hamilton reflected. "The attempt to make a long stint didn't pay off. That's something we need to learn from." Still, recovering to P6 with the penalty and putting in such a solid race in front of this crowd, it feels great. Despite his upbeat tone, Hamilton remains realistic about Ferrari's prospects. While Monza highlighted moments of promise, he admitted the Scuderia does not yet have the car to consistently challenge for podiums. "I don't think I have the right car to fight for podiums for the rest of the season," he said bluntly. Max Verstappen was incredibly strong today, and we don't have Red Bull's pace. We don't even have McLaren's pace. At best, we're in that 4th or 5th spot. The That doesn't mean Hamilton has abandoned hope. If we can do an exceptional job, there might be a few podiums here and there. Definitely there's a chance at some point, but in terms of pure pace, it's not there right now. For a man who thrives on competition, it is a reminder of the fine margins between success and frustration in Formula One. So what do you think? Can Hamilton and Ferrari turn things around before the season ends, or will podiums remain a rarity for the red team? Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more Formula One updates, analysis, and behind-the-scenes insights.